Let's go live to James Brown. He's the CEO of the Space Industry Association of Australia, also non-resident fellow at the US Study Centre. Captain Kirk, he's done it. Would you do it if offered, James?
I think I'd have to. I mean, if a 90-year-old astronaut can get up there and back, it's pretty hard for any of us to say no. And it was fantastic watching his interview afterwards. Just he was overcome, the sort of profoundness of seeing the blue of the Earth. He kept talking about it, and wonderful to see. Also wonderful to see an Australian on that flight, the man that walked in front of Captain Kirk boarding the rocket, Chris Boshuzin, one of the Australian space industry's leading lights. He co-founded a company called Planet Labs and has worked with a lot of Australian space engineers and scientists. Great to see him going into space too. We're going to see more of this. I mean, this technology is so safe, so reliable now that you could put a 90-year-old like Captain Kirk into the cockpit, send him aloft, and know that he'll come back safely.
He was emotional, as you said there. The profound experience is how he described it. But is this just a hobby for billionaires, James?
Look, there's no doubt that there are PR considerations in here for Jeff Bezos, and all of this, it sort of lends itself to parody in a way. And there's been some great takes on this billionaire rivalry in space, but there's a very serious side behind it. I mean, the global space industry is booming. We're seeing tens of thousands of satellites being planned to go into space in the next few decades. And there are huge economic returns for both private industry doing space operations and government. So in space telecoms, for example, every dollar invested yields a direct return of $6 to $7 here on the Earth, as well as the jobs that go along with that. So they're not doing this purely for altruistic reasons, purely for the joyride. They're doing this because there is an industry being built here and they want to be at the very front of it.
We saw the government's commitment alongside NASA for an Australian-made rover on the moon. Is this a good step forward? The government's talking about this being part of an effort to build the space industry, to multiply the size of it, and that's worth about $12 billion apparently within the decade.
Yeah, this fits into the government's plan to triple the amount of revenue and jobs coming from space by 2030. That means we've got to grow space jobs by 10% roughly every year. This is getting us into the most significant international space project of the next decade, NASA's project to get back to the surface of the moon by 2024, to build human habitats there, to be able to develop water and all that sort of stuff you need to survive on the moon, around the moon's south pole. And now Australia will have an integral part of it. So it's a serious contribution by NASA to Australia's space industry. It represents a contribution of tens of billions of dollars on top of the $50 million that the government and the Space Agency had already put up for this project. We've got the expertise to build a rover, but this technology is very hard. You're building something, you don't get any second chances if anything goes wrong. It's got to survive launch. You've got to be able to talk to it from a long, long way away. And that's going to take a lot of scientific and engineering expertise here. Others have tried to do this internationally and had great difficulty. I think we'll make a good go of it. It'll be fascinating to see which Australian space companies and research organisations step up to the challenge. Of course, this alone won't help us build the critical mass we need to get the space industry off the ground. And we've still got to do things like make the Space Agency a permanent statutory body with its own budget. At the moment, it's a 3-year pilot program, which has been very successful, but doesn't have a confirmed budget going forward.
And finally, on this issue, James, with the rover initiative, where is it the latest efforts to get man back on the moon? Because it has been so long since that was achieved.
Well, the plan is to have humans back on the moon in 2024. The US President Joe Biden has said it will be there will be a woman in that crew when it lands on the moon, and a person of colour, and that is aiming to land at the South Pole, which is the area NASA scientists have identified that holds the best hope to be able to develop water and all those other things you need, and have the resources to do, in situ resource utilisation, they call it, or mining as other people call it. CSIRO here in Australia is working on some of the problems with that right now. They're looking at how you deal with lunar dust. They're looking at how you develop resources on the moon's surface. It's going to take a huge effort with the eventual goal of not only working on the moon, but getting to Mars too. And the US is not the only country doing that. China has plans to return to the moon. It's building its own space station at the moment with Russia. The UAE has got plans to get to Mars. So there is truly a lot of international activity in space, and it's fantastic that the government has made the commitment that Australia will be part of it, not just for the inspirational reasons, but for the economic and job opportunities that come with it too.
James Brown, the CEO of the Space Industry Association of Australia, thank you. As always, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kieran.